All right, awesome. Here we are for day 7, I believe, of the Fearless Challenge. So today we're talking about the 2 misconceptions that you may have about hiring me. Now, I want to give you some preface. Yesterday, I was supposed to post this, and I just had such a hectic day on top of me scootering to work. So I have like one of those um, economical and very what's the word that I'm looking for? Commuter friendly. Like it's like a razor scooter, but it's not a scooter that has like those small, tiny, like plastic wheels. It's an actual tire that you have to pump air into. And I have one of those, and I've been scootering to work for the past 2 days, and it's 4.5 miles each way. So I've been getting a good workout in, and also my body is like still getting used to it. So that being said, I was extremely tired yesterday. However, we're back on track. So I'm going to be doing 2 lives today to make up for the one I didn't do yesterday. So this is the one that I was supposed to do yesterday. Now, here's 2 misconceptions about what it may be to work with me and why you may be on the fence about hiring me. So number 1, misconception. She's all woo and no facts. Now, I definitely refute this. Number 1, I have a BS in biology from the University of California, Irvine, and I have worked with T cells for making T cells for cancer patients for about 3.5 years. And my current work right now specializes in creating heart medications for diabetics using stem cells. So I am not all woo and no facts. I do believe and know that science is powerful. And I believe and know that science and spirituality can coexist, and they work hand in hand. So when you work with me on your healing journey, I don't just shake crystals in my hand. I don't just conjure up spells. I don't just sprinkle some fairy dust and say, you're healed now, and so it is. Okay? What I say unto you is no fluff. I mix in a little bit of Miss Cleo along with Bill Nye the Science Guy and a sprinkle of TD Jakes in my practice. Okay? It is my inner knowing that through unity consciousness, by combining all facets of religion, science, and spirituality, energy healing as well, you can combine all things and therefore be capable of all things. So I mix the practical with the spiritual because ultimately you need both to accomplish true vitality and to truly step into your potential on your healing journey when you work with me. Now, misconception number 2, and this is the one that I'm going to really expand on. So you're going to watch until the end of this particular live, so that way you can truly understand what I mean when I say this, okay? And how it would apply to how we would work together if you were to hire me as your multidimensional healer and, excuse me, and spiritual mentor. So, misconception number 2, talking about it is healing. You've seen this before where people say, talking about it helps your healing journey, and it does. Absolutely. However, it's still not enough. Now, let me expand on this. A lot of people that I've worked with have also gone to traditional counseling therapy. I too have done this. And as someone that has done this, I know that it has had a profound effect on who I am and who I will continue to evolve into becoming. However, it does have its limitations. Counseling therapy provides a top down approach. Now, what do I mean by that? It engages your conscious mind, your prefrontal cortex, where you are consciously telling and recounting a story. And you are encouraged then to elicit emotions that story starts to bring up for you. In this way, you are engaging your conscious brain first, and then your limbic brain, which is your emotional center, and your reptilian brain, your survival center. So first your prefrontal or your conscious brain, then your limbic center, your emotional center, and your survival center. So you're basically going from the top of your brain to the bottom of your brain in this healing framework. Now, this approach to healing, while effective, will take more time and prolong your healing journey. And as someone that values their time, someone that wants to squeeze the juice out of life, as someone that wants to reach your highest potential, so you can access that vitality right now or as soon as possible, you're someone that wants results faster. And that we will get into it in a later part of the video. To further prove this point, in the book, The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk, he says and explicitly states that clients that he works with, the patients that he works with, will recount and tell their story many, many, many times. And he has found these people to be the most clumsy and poorly coordinated people because of their mental health ailments. He then goes on to say that just telling the story doesn't change the way that your body will react. It doesn't change the way that your heart starts to beat. It doesn't change the way that you start to breathe. It doesn't change the way that you can maneuver spatially in your environment. Okay. Now, I know you may be saying, okay, well, I'm not in this type of mental health predicament. I'm not that far down the spectrum where I need to be committed and be a patient to someone full time, which is what Bessel van der Kolk did. He had a lot of patients that he would see full time. They were in a mental health center. And I understand that. However, many of the people that he treated weren't in that predicament initially either. It took time to get to that point. It took painful experience after painful experience to get to that point. It took them getting stuck in that same neural pathway where they kept experiencing the same loop, experiencing the same cycle, and those things became the norm. They became codependent on reliving their painful pasts. They needed to repeat the same behavior. They needed to do the same thing over and over again because that's who they saw themselves as. Their pain became their identity. Now, who can relate to their pain becoming who they are? Give me a one in the comments if that actually hit home for you. Now, if you're someone that can relate to that comment, then you know firsthand the concept of being in the same pattern of behavior and doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, This type of scenario can therefore happen to anyone, no matter what field you're in, no matter what your past experiences were or when they happened, where those past experiences had been yesterday or 10 years from now. That open loop will stay open until you do the healing to close it. So if you're someone that is telling their story and engaging in that conscious storytelling of something that happened to you as your only method of healing, know that this method will take a significantly longer amount of time to engage with the parts of the brain that will help you change how you move through the world, how you breathe, how your heart beats, what hormones are released. Now, while talking about it may help you in increasing your vibration and vitality at some point, it will be in minute amounts, in small amounts in comparison to the methods that myself and other spiritual mentors or energy healers, intuitive healers, multidimensional healers use. For example, I've heard clients say explicitly, one session with you is like 1 month of therapy. Or it would have taken me years to accomplish in therapy what I have accomplished in months. Now they meant by using spiritual and energy healing practices. And the most effective healing, again, that I have seen with my clients is when they approach healing from a bottom-up perspective, meaning that instead of engaging the conscious brain first, they engage the unconscious brain, the parts of the brain that have to do with your emotions and your survival center. These parts of the brain, namely, are the limbic center, your emotional part of the brain, and your reptilian brain, the part that has to do with your survival. You have to engage with those parts of the brain first when it comes to your healing. That will then change how your body reacts to whatever scenario that it's in. Now I'm going to give you some more education on this. When you are consciously telling your story, when you are consciously engaging your prefrontal cortex or your conscious brain first, this part of the brain was actually developed last. It is the most immature part of your brain in comparison to the reptilian and the limbic centers. The conscious part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part that you storytell consciously, is the part of the brain that is concerned with setting goals, your sequence of action, your managing of time. It has a lot more complex processes to sift through in comparison to your emotional and your reptilian brain. So by engaging first in the bottom up perspective, meaning that you're engaging with your emotional and your reptilian brain first, they are spatially at the bottom of your brain in comparison to the top, which is your prefrontal cortex or your neocortex. You are engaging with, when you engage with the limbic center or the survival center, the emotional and survival reptilian brain and the limbic center. I know that was a little bit of a mouthful. Let me say that again. Your limbic center, which is your emotional brain, and your reptilian brain, which is your survival center. When you engage with those parts of the brain first, you are engaging with your unconscious brain. Now, to intentionally engage with this part of your brain, you can do things like shadow work. You can do things like the gene keys. These are things that I do and work with my clients with. And when you are engaging with this part of the brain, this is the part of the brain that has to do with what? Eliciting your heartbeat, the way you breathe, the way that you relive or recount certain painful memories of the past, regulation of your physiology, feelings of safety, excitement, pleasure, and desire. All of these things that I just mentioned are directly related to your emotional brain and to your reptilian brain, to the parts of the brain that are lower, to the bottom of the brain. This is the part of the brain that you need to have the most contact and the most healing work done with. So that way it can affect your conscious brain, which is also called your rational brain, which then can affect the way you manage time, which then can affect your sequence of actions. You have to do that first. Why? Wouldn't you want to change the way your heart reacts to certain situations that first make you more reactive instead of responsive? Wouldn't you want to engage with the part of the brain that has a lot to do with what hormones are released? Because those hormones, as you know, or you may not know, but a lot of these hormones, what do? They affect your mood. Okay? So the hormone that I'm going to talk about is oxytocin. We're going to get to that later. So why are we doing this? When you engage with the limbic center, the emotional part of your brain, the reptilian center, the survival part of your brain, these are all part of your unconscious brain. And they are stimulating behaviors that you do unconsciously. When you start to uproot some of the emotions that are in there and you bring conscious awareness to them through your conscious brain, that's when a part of the limbic center, specifically your hypothalamus, will talk to your pituitary gland. It will say, hey, I'm feeling amazing. Release oxytocin. It says, okay, awesome. Oxytocin is one of the few hormones that have a positive feedback loop. So the more you release it in your body, the more the body wants more of it. It's not the other way around, where if you release it in the body, then it says, okay, no, I don't want any more. It's too much. No, the more you do it, the more it will say, give me more. Why? That's why it's called the love drug. You will literally start falling in love with yourself on a physiological level, on a spiritual level, and on an energetic level. And what has the highest frequency? Love. Okay? When you release oxytocin, next thing you know, you're helping yourself generate feelings of trust, deeper self-trust, I should say as well, deeper connection with self. You start to feel safer in romantic and platonic relationships. You start to feel more attached and develop deeper bonds with your family, with your friends. It increases your ability to even mend certain relationships. And again, by doing this, by releasing more oxytocin, you're also increasing your abilities of your conscious brain to do what it needs to do, which is manage you. So as someone that wants to get the most effective healing journey, it's important that you know what part of the brain to stimulate and how long to stimulate and what part of your body that's going to affect as well. Okay? because you desire vitality, you desire to feel at home in your body, and you desire to feel closer and more connected to the people you care for. Okay, so that means no longer doing something that you know doesn't work, or at least won't work in the time that you want it to work. Now, this does require you putting in the work, okay? But it doesn't mean that this isn't possible for you. And I know that it may be scary to think of the fact, like, okay, what if I do this, and how am I going to be afterward? I don't know how it's going to look, how it's going to feel. There's so many unknown variables. I get that. So if this provides any consolation, I want to leave you with these quotes. In Deuteronomy, it says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord or your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." This is also in the Torah and Davarim. I may not be saying it correctly. I still have to learn my pronunciations, okay? In the Quran, it says, "Indeed, Allah will not change the condition of people until they change what's in themselves." And Buddhist Pema Chodron, so again, I may not be saying her name correctly. I tried my best to learn how to pronounce her name. You can look her up. Again, her name is Pema, P-E-M-A, Cho, C-H-O-D-R-O-N. It may be Chadron. I'm still learning again. But she says this in When Things Fall Apart, Heart Advice for Difficult Times. In her book, she says, "If we commit ourselves to staying right where we are, then our experience becomes very, very vivid. Things become very clear when there is nowhere to escape." So, you have been informed. You have been educated. Now it's time to take action. Sign up to work with me one-on-one and send me a DM for info. Thank you for watching this video. This is Radiance Thompson, spiritual mentor and intuitive energy healer, signing off.